The Old Woman Who Lived Across the Woods by LeBron Keener. Nettie Myers lived alone. She was an elderly woman of 76 or 77 years old, but no one knew her age for certain, including Nettie. I don't mean to say she lived alone entirely. She had an old hound dog that just sort of lay around on the ground around the house, but the fact remained that she was without the company of friends and family. Why, she was the only person in those parts that even carried the Myers name. So no one knew where the old woman came from or who her people were. She lived on the edge of the dark woods, which seemed dreadful compared to the grassy meadow next to it. Hers was a primitive home made of hand-sawn logs with moss-covered sod between them. Although old and in disrepair, it was dry, plenty warm, and satisfied Nettie well. The inside of her little home was somewhat of a mystery because no one ever went to visit the old woman. The best anybody could do was imagine an interior just as run down and dirty as it was on the outside. She was somewhat of a hermit, and people just stayed away, which suited Nettie Myers fine. The front porch of the old house held a vast array of wild herbs and woodland plants drying in the sun to be turned into tea, salve, and other medicines that she swore were far better treatments than those of the doctor in town. Her smelling sauce, as she called it, could cure an upset stomach and put a mind at ease. Her ratsbane tea, it was told, could cure the flu and the common cold. There were jars of rainwater she had collected and burlap bags of roots, and among it all was the lonely, frail woman sitting in her rocking chair, looking out over the meadow quietly. Her old cotton floral print dress was faded from many washes in homemade lye soap. Her gray hair she kept in a bun loosely enough to allow a few rogue hairs to fall wildly to the sides of her sunken face, giving her a wind-blown, ghostly appearance. Around her neck she wore an oval locket made of silver and black onyx that hung from a silver chain. The chair squeaked against the floorboards as she rocked. Every day as the sun lay bright and low just before dusk, Nettie Myers would already be bedded down inside the little time-worn log house. It's a right eerie feeling to look at that home from the outside in the evening sun and not see anything but darkness in those dusty old windows. She retired with the sun, and no one ever saw a hint of a kerosene lamp burning in the night. Some people swore that she wasn't a regular old woman. They claimed she wasn't even in that old house sleeping at night, but out in the woods gathering roots and plants that she used in her potions. That's right, I said potions. Simply put, the people out in those parts believed without a doubt that Nettie Myers was a witch. John Denham didn't believe in witches, but even he thought the old woman was a very peculiar being. John was a farmer. He and his young wife, Molly B., short for Beatrice, lived on the other side of the dark woods from Nettie and kept to themselves where she was concerned. They lived on a vast farm that had been passed down through generations of the Denham family, and his father and grandfather both warned of the old woman who lived across the woods.
That old hag goes out in the woods at night, son, and she turns herself into an old chicken hawk. And if we on watch, she'll sneak up and kill our laying hen, sure enough.
Hogwash, a young John Denham said. He never believed his father, and now that he was a grown man himself, he still didn't think Nettie Myers was a witch. Molly B., on the other hand, was terrified of her.
She just sits there in that rocking chair and stares,
said Molly as they drove by the old home of Nettie Myers.
Those wire-rimmed glasses down on her long nose makes me uneasy every time we pass by this place. And that locket, it must be some sort of evil charm. Look how black it is. No color at all.
An old woman has a right to sit on her own front porch, Molly, John replied. She ain't doing us any wrong. She's just an old woman. Hell, we're all gonna be old one day, good Lord's will.
Believe what you will, John,
Molly continued as their horse-drawn wagon passed by the meadow.
I still say she's a witch.
Molly's opinion about Nettie Myers was shared by everyone in the community. Sunday was the Lord's Day, and everyone filed into the Methodist Church every week. Everyone except Nettie Myers.
Why doesn't she come to church then, John?
Molly asked.
Ain't nary witch gonna set foot in a holy place,
Interrupted one of the men after the service was over.
The second that old hag walks through these doors, she'll catch a fire.
Hogwash, said John Denham. We are all sinners, brother. Why ain't we all burning up?
Well, it's different with a witch, Denham,
said the man. Yeah, John responded sarcastically. Molly, let's get on to the house. It's getting late. That night, while laying in bed, John was awakened by the sound of havoc in the chicken house. The hens were squawking, under attack by some unseen predator. Whatever it was had sneaked inside in an attempt to feast on the laying hens. John stepped onto the back porch and fired both barrels of his shotgun, but didn't see a thing. The night grew quiet again. The gunshots had scared off whatever had attacked his chickens, and that was good enough for him.
What was it?
Molly asked, walking out onto the porch behind him. I don't know, he responded. Probably a fox. It's gone now.
Or a chicken hawk?
She added, looking at him suspiciously. Yes, dear, a chicken hawk. Now let's go back to sleep. The next day, John Denham set a trap inside the chicken house, bound to catch the sly fox or whatever it was that was after his chickens the night before.
You'll need a bigger trap than that for old Nettie Myers,
said Molly as she gathered the eggs. Just wait, Molly, argued John. As soon as I catch the damn varmint and prove to you that it's nothing but a fox, I want this talk about witches put to rest, you hear? There ain't no witches around here.
I hear,
she said. She went back to the house as John continued setting the trap. He held down the heavy spring-loaded claw that would clasp the critter's leg once it stepped on it. Then he followed Molly back to the house. That night he lay in the darkness waiting. About midnight, his eyes got so heavy he couldn't keep them open. John Denham fell asleep. While he slept, the trap cracked. John woke up when he heard the animal crying and jerking around in the trap. He grabbed his gun and ran outside. There in the trap was the sly fox that had been after his chickens. The hens were running amok, and the rooster was violently pecking at the fox's eyes, leaving gaping sockets within its head. There, John said. Now tomorrow morning, Molly will see that it was nothing but a sly old fox. He left the fox in the trap so Molly could see it for herself. He went back to bed and slept for the rest of the night. Only at dawn did he awaken. There was a knock upon the door. He got dressed, walked to the front room, and opened the door. There was Nettie Myers holding a jar of her homemade smelling sauce.
Here,
She said, handing him the jar.
This is far better than anything the doctor can give you.
Why do I need this, Nettie? Asked John.
When you go out there.
Nettie replied, looking out over the chicken house. John looked troubled as he walked out the door past Nettie Myers. He went into the chicken house and found Molly B's bare body laying on the ground, her foot broken and caught within the trap. Both her eyes had been plucked out. Nettie Myers walked back through the woods toward home, where she would sit quietly on the porch listening to the blood-curdling screams of John Denham. The old hound dog howling something awful. As she rocked, she opened the oval locket of silver and onyx she wore around her neck, revealing a picture of a young John Denham. She smiled, revealing her decaying teeth. Molly B. Denham would never take John away from her again. Nettie Myers had seen to that.